Namaste. My name is Preity Upala, and I am a global thought leader and a multimedia personality. Welcome to my podcast, The Preity Experience. Join me as I explore some of the most fascinating and crucial issues that affect our world today. I take a unique global perspective on these issues, and the very foundation of my insights is humanity and spirituality. I'm Preity Upala, and welcome to the Preity Experience.
You're listening to the Afflatus, a podcast that features stories of entrepreneurs and young leaders who are changing the world for better every single day. My name is Alok Rathore, and I'm a film producer best known for projects such as Choice and The Doorbell. I'm sitting down with leaders to talk about their process, the lessons they've learned, and how to make an impact. Hey friends, it's your host Alok. Thanks for tuning in today. Here are a couple of things before we proceed. If you are into the inspirational stuff that I do here, consider becoming a listener supporter. You can set up a monthly recurring subscription of 99 cents, $4.99 or $9.99. For complete details on subscription and exclusive rewards, visit facebook.com/ansiafilms. The link is mentioned in the description. Thank you. In this episode, Preity talks about her spirituality, her experiences of traveling all over the world, and her desire to make a difference to people's lives. Welcome to the show, Preity.
Thank you so much for having me. Namaste, everyone.
Great. So, what's your story?
Wow, that is not an easy question to answer. We all have, I guess, unique stories, and mine is no different. But I'll try my best. So I consider myself to be a spiritual being, having a physical experience here on the world plane. I am a former investment banker turned beauty queen turned Hollywood entrepreneur. So I live in Los Angeles, but I was born in Dubai, grew up all around the Middle East, and then went to Europe, and then my family eventually moved to Australia, and now I live in Los Angeles, and I do various things. Of course, I work in Hollywood industry as an actor and a producer, but I'm also a radio personality. I have my own show called The Eternal Hour. I am a political editor and a commentator for various outlets, and I specify or specialize on international affairs, geopolitical strategies, religion, and philosophy. I am writing my first book. I'm very excited. Hopefully, it should be coming out soon. And I also speak around the world on various topics, but essentially philosophy and spirituality and purpose and so on. I consider myself a citizen of the world, having been to over 75 countries and counting, and really grew up in 5 major cities around the world as well, which gives me a unique worldview. And my purpose in life is just to fulfill my potential and to follow my dharma, which is my path. And I just think that happiness and inner peace are the most precious things that are available to us.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you are a very versatile human being, I can say, because there is nothing that you have not done. And that's wonderful because, as you said, being the citizen of the world and going through all these different experiences makes you more aware and more empathetic towards people around you. And I think that is a huge advantage in this day and age because most people, especially now that we are more global than ever, do not understand the other person's perspective. And to be able to do that along the way doing all these amazing things, I think is a wonderful thing about you. So it's great to have you on the show. How did your education play a role in helping you develop a career?
I feel so eternally grateful to my parents because they made education and knowledge such an integral part of my upbringing. They instilled such great value in it. And I really think that I am the person that I am today because of that. And education, of course, can come in many forms. You know, we have academic education, but we also have spiritual knowledge and also street smarts and common sense and all of that. Now, as far as academic education goes, my story is quite unique. I was very young when I started university this is in Sydney, Australia, and I was only 16 years old. I was 15 when I was in the 12th grade. So I was 2 years younger than everybody else, 2 or 3 years younger. And that's quite challenging, but it was rewarding later on because I seemed to have gotten an early start in life. And at the age of 20, when I graduated with two degrees, one in IT, I have a bachelor in technology, and I also have a bachelor in marketing, business marketing. And I love research, and I was very passionate about research. So I also had an honors research degree, specializing in electronic marketing. So when I was 20, I graduated with my degrees, and my professor called me to her office, and she said, "Hey, I want to nominate you for the gold medal at the university, but also I've received a huge grant from the Australian government, and I want my best students to help me with these research projects. So could I offer you a PhD program and we'll pay you a good stipend? And this is the project that you'll be working on. Uh, are you interested?" And I really had no problems saying no because I already had my plans, and I was, very interested in starting the corporate work and my corporate life, and I didn't even think twice about it. But I do think that at some point in my life, I will do a PhD in a topic that I'm actually passionate about. But my academic education has served me well. Now, as far as the spiritual education goes, I feel even more blessed because my parents were incredibly spiritual. And from a very young age, I grew up sort of watching them in motion. You know, I remember watching my dad do yoga every day. And I was taught mantras and meditation techniques, and we would read these spiritual texts, and they were such good storytellers. So I learned a lot of my spiritual philosophy from them, and I'm so grateful because it makes me who I am today.
A lot of my personality was shaped because I was exposed to a lot of people from different cultures and different languages and different lifestyles. I think that's a wonderful thing to discover because when you see that you are good at something and it's being appreciated on such an important level, then it gives you more confidence to take on bigger challenges. And that has been the reason that I could make a shift into media because my interest generally was not beyond economics and finance. But the more I explored, the more I discovered myself, the more confident I grew in starting something that is outside of my comfort zone. So it's been 3 years now, but I agree that having a more diverse perspective, academically, spiritually, and in general, really helps you to become more versatile and more open-minded. So that's great. What's your definition of happiness?
This has got to be the eternal question, the billion-dollar question that I think we all ask ourselves. Now, I think the world today teaches us that technological advancement and social media, instant gratification or fame, money, all of these things do not give you happiness. Because I think we're more connected than ever before in many ways. However, I think we're also more empty, and the void is even more greater because people are looking for happiness in the wrong places. So it's not about how fast we're advancing or how much more technology can grow and excel. It's really how much deeper we can go in ourselves, to find that nectar of joy inside. Uh, I am quite privileged and lucky because I always was brought up to realize that happiness does not come from outside. It really is an inside job. It has to come from within. Nobody can give it to you. You have to give yourself that gift of inner peace and contentment and joy. These things don't just come. I think people are aspiring for more. They want to be more richer and more famous, more powerful, so that they can get a taste of that bliss and happiness. But sadly, even if they're lucky enough to get these things, it doesn't make them any more happy. In fact, a lot of times we're seeing, and we certainly see it in Hollywood and with sports, with athletes and politicians as well. The more they have, the more empty they feel, and we really see them act up. So I hope that we move to a world where the true meaning of happiness is actually discussed and taught. They should be taught from school and in all forms of education, and also within your upbringing. Personally, for me, my definition of happiness is when you are truly at peace with yourself, when your mind, body, and spirit are one, and they are aligned with each other, and there's a congruency there, and you really are doing what you're meant to be doing. And there needs to be a deep, deep sense of gratitude, I think, and humility that comes with that, where you are just grateful that you are here, you're alive, and you're able to do what you want, and you're able to breathe life. And real happiness comes from little things too, helping someone else and putting a smile on their face, or doing what you can to make somebody else's day. I think that gives you more happiness than maybe something that you can do for yourself.
And I agree that happiness is an inside job, it's an intrinsic thing, because the moment you start finding happiness in materialistic things, uh, the value of that depreciates the moment you acquire them. So you buy a new house, a new car, new phone, new laptop, whatever. The moment you buy it, its value starts depreciating. And so if you find your happiness in those things, then you will always keep acquiring more of those things to keep your happiness up. And if you are a billionaire, then that's sustainable. But I guess most of the people are not in that space. So, and even for billionaires, I mean, like, acquiring assets is a part of building their personal wealth. But they are also smart enough to know that, okay, happiness is beyond all of these things. And I see that, a lot of people, especially in the early stages of their career, become too sidelined by the fact that they need to earn money to be happy. But having like spent 8 years into my work experience now, I feel that happiness is something that comes from having that sense of freedom and having that sense of control over your own life. And that happens when you make the choices that you want to make. A lot of the times people are not able to do that for whatever reasons, but I feel rising above that and doing what you really want to do, I think really is the source of happiness, at least for me. So I think, yeah, what you explained is wonderful, and it makes a lot of sense. And I do wish to see that more people in this world were happy in the truest form, not by pretending to be happy or acquiring things to be happy. So, yeah, I think that's something that even I would like to see in this world. How has the people around you, like your friends and family, inspired or influenced you?
Well, I think the greatest influence that I've had, certainly in my life, begins with my parents. I have learned a great deal from both my mother and my father. From my father, it was spiritual knowledge and discipline and work ethic, and being very sort of knowing what you want, and just going after it, and just being a moral human being, and sort of being mindful and conscious, I think, as you operate in this labyrinth of life. And now for my mother, she is a very street smart lady. not dogmatic or anything like that, but she was just a very intelligent person. She had street smarts, and I learned common sense from her and her attitude in life. And she was also very strong. And as a woman, it was very inspiring to have such, such a strong parent. I think, especially if it happens to be a mother, because you learn from that, and it's you can use that as a model for yourself moving forward. And I mean, my relationship with my father was also very precious and very healthy, and that sort of forms almost my relationship with men in general, as an adult. So I think I treasure that, and I'm grateful that I had a very happy upbringing, because I think for most people, whatever happens in the imprint period, which is from 0 to 7 years of age, that pretty much forms you, how you're going to be forever. Your issues and all of your subconscious hurts and wounds actually come at that time. So anytime you do any healing on yourself, people always go back to that point in time and then try to sort of heal problems from a timeline therapy perspective. So I'm very grateful. I've been lucky to have had some good friends. I have some people that I look up to. I've also been extremely privileged to meet some spiritual gurus or people who are very spiritually advanced and who have maybe gained enlightenment. I saw them as a sadguru, as a real avatar. And I've met these people. I've spent time with them. I've been blessed with them, and they've initiated me in different ways. And I there was a transfer of knowledge, and there was just this, when you're in the presence of greatness, or someone who truly is enlightened, it really affects you. It permeates through your veins and your cells, and just from inside out, you're truly touched. So I consider, I think, my spiritual mentors and teachers being extremely important, from whether it's my Sufi master, who I learned about heart opening work, or whether it's particular yoga teachers who taught me proper yoga, or my meditation instructors. I just learned a great deal from all of them, and I consider them my greatest teachers. And again, they all shaped me uh, to help me become the person that I am today.
As you said, in the early years of your life, that really shapes the kind of human being that you will go on to become. And in my case, my parents are both high school dropouts, but they went on to have their own successful career, and both of them have their own independent business now, which was very inspiring for me to see because despite not having any kind of education or background within a certain field, they were able to rise above the odds and do what they wanted to do. And so I have those excellent role models in my family. But I was also very much inspired by my grandfather because he was born in pre-independence India, which was British India, and when he was young at that time, he still made friends with a lot of British guys and hung out with them. And so, although he, being the least educated person in our family, spoke better English than anyone else, and so that was interesting for me to see that how far in future he thought of things because um, when I was very young, I remember him telling me that it is my dream that one day you will study at one of these finest institutions in the world because I couldn't study, your parents couldn't study. We want to make sure that you get that what we couldn't have. And although my grandfather wasn't alive when I went on to study at Harvard, but I think he was there in spirit. So um, it was all of this combination of factors that I saw that like running a business is practically in my DNA because I'm constantly surrounded by these people who have begun their businesses and done well at that. But beyond that, also, I mean, I have a lot of cousins who are very younger than me. Almost some of them are like 10 or 12 years younger than me. And so to see them grow in front of my eyes and learn from their curiosities and learn from how they perceive the world and what they like and what they don't like has really allowed me to be more human in the sense that now I can relate to someone who is much younger than me, but at the same time, I've had mentors and people who are much older than me. So that then allows me to understand the whole spectrum of like how human beings evolve and how things change along the way. How would you say is your creative style different than others?
Everyone is, of course, unique in their own way. But I feel that my whole journey and the path that I'm on, my dharma in life is one that's very unique to Hollywood or this sort of fashion beauty uh, industry or even media, I would say, because I think my intention is very different. I'm not someone who just had a dream of being acting or being creative or any of or communicating or to be a storyteller. I think my intention is much deeper than that. It's really about trying to inspire and empower people, and it just so happens that my platform is maybe Hollywood or the media or so on. But the place where I'm coming from is very unique and different. Now, one way in which I do differ from people is the authenticity. I feel like in Hollywood, people come and or just in the world at large, they want to be something else. They want to be someone else. They want to be what's hip, what's popular, what's going to be cool. And I think they actually lose themselves in the process. But for myself, I've always been my authentic self. I know that the power of a person or a brand, it lies in its authenticity. And I've never had a problem being myself because I'm very comfortable in my own skin. I've always been like that. And it's really guided what I say and what I do and how I operate. And with authenticity comes, integrity and being genuine and being truthful, because you would have to be if you want to be an authentic person. And so I am myself. I think my world view is very unique. Having grown up around the world in five different major cities, I grew up in, of course, in India, in Dubai, in Sydney, in Europe, and now in New York and LA. That gives one a very, very broad and interesting, diverse way of looking at life. And also I feel like I have been in places where I was the outsider. Being when I was in the Middle East, I was the only sort of non-Arab or non-Muslim person in school or my neighborhood or so on. And then, of course, in a place like Australia, everybody is Australian or they're Christian or they're Western, and I am who I am. So I've multiple times in my life I have really been the insider, sorry, the outsider, and they have made me uh, be stronger, I think, on who I am and where I come from. And I grab onto my own heritage and my culture very dearly because that distinguishes me from the rest. And I see the similarities as well, but I also see how I am different and what I can bring to the table. So I've always come with that. And in Hollywood, being an international, I guess, diverse actor with a different accent and a different worldview, it really adds, I think, to who I am. And finally, I think my spiritual foundation adds a great deal because that's not something that every other person in Hollywood has. So for me, the basis of everything that I do is this um, search for the pursuit of spiritual truth and the pursuit of the truth in many ways. And I do things with a view to inspire and empower and also invoke this need in themselves, I think, to one, get on their eternal path, get on their dharma, find their real purpose in life and go after it. And second, what is really their gift in life, and that they really can fulfill that potential, because ultimately, as we talked about happiness earlier, unless you're doing what you came here to do, you won't really be happy internally, and that makes all the difference.
A lot of people have a very single dimensional view towards life. Um, and someone like you who has traveled to all these places and gone through different experiences and embraced different cultures and different people, I think that's where your uniqueness lies, because you are open to these different people and their ideas and their thought processes, and at the same time you are very strongly connected with your heritage and your culture. So I think that really allows uh, for a more fruitful understanding of how the world is around you, rather than just having to look at it from a single perspective. And I relate to the idea of being an outsider because uh, when I was in investment banking, I was told that, oh, you come from a family of entrepreneurs, so maybe you should have continued in that, you belong there. This is a lot of different things, and you might not survive here and things like that. So, but then I did well in that. Uh, this podcast, making films, doing documentaries, all of that felt very alien to me in the beginning. And so I've been an outsider pretty much for the majority of my professional career. Um, and even in places like, um, meeting with friends or hanging out with them, where there would be like eight German guys and then there's me, or there are like four Japanese guys and then there's me. So that's an interesting place to be in, because you don't understand the language, or you don't understand their thought processes or discussions or even the jokes, but it allows me to understand how they go about these things, and eventually how I can be a part of it, and how I can uh, make sure that I am a positive influence in that scenario. This should be an interesting question for you. When was the last time you tried something for the first time?
Oh, that's so interesting because I'm actually quite adventurous and I love trying new things and things that I haven't done. And I mean, I love things like bungee jumping and skydiving and all of that. And I've done all of those now. But there is one thing that does come to mind that I did try recently. I've never done that before. And it's actually something that I thought I would share because it was quite a deep transformational experience. And it was a silent meditation retreat that I did. It's called the Vipassana retreat, quite well known. And they have Vipassana centers all around the world. So Vipassana is a Sanskrit word, and it's about contemplation and sort of meditating on yourself. And I mean, this I mean, you they teach you some Buddhist meditation techniques, but ultimately this sort of technology comes from Vedic philosophy, as a lot of these things tend to do. Now, when I was in Sydney, actually, 10 years ago, I think, I wanted to do it there in the Blue Mountains, and I actually drove up there with a friend. And when we got there, we realized that we needed some more preparation to sign up or whatever, but it didn't happen at the time. And I just told myself, one day I'm going to come back here and I'll do it when it's the right time. Well, that did happen a few years ago when I was in Thailand, and I was there for some film festival, and I was all over Southeast Asia, but I was going to spend some time on the islands in Thailand, and I had a friend who was from Russia, and I was going up to see him, and he said, I can't spend time with you, I can't hang out with you because I'm doing this retreat. Actually, maybe you want to do this retreat with me. And he told me about it. And I actually went online, I signed up, and they approved me, and I did it with him. And basically, it's an 11-day meditation retreat. And for 11 days, you don't speak to anyone, you don't look at anyone, you are completely silent. There's no journals, there's no writing, there's no nothing. All you do is just meditate for 8 hours every day. You wake up at 4, you do yoga, you do some mantras, yeah, and you get some discourses as well. You have these incredible monks who come and speak to you, and it's communal, so you eat with other people, but nobody's actually focusing on anyone else. And you just get a lot of time to contemplate on life. And you do this for 11 days. So, I mean, I communicate for a living, so however, I'm very introverted and I'm someone who's very quiet and reserved as well. So I didn't have a problem with not speaking, but it was interesting, and it was transformative. Of course, I had many revelations, And after the 11th day, they have a ceremony and people do speak finally and share. And I did share as well. And I realized that the power of words, it's so important to be, I think, be so precious with what you say, because some people cannot even speak. And it makes you realize how valuable your words are. And after that moment, I just made a pledge to myself that I want to speak the truth and I want to be of the truth. So since then, I have always advocated for sort of being a messenger of the truth in the world. And that's what I aspire to do with everything that I do. So that's an example of an experience that I had, that was the first time, and I may do it again, but I recommend people to do it. And if you get a chance, try to do it in some exotic location like Thailand or Bali or India, because if you do it in Western countries, they usually feed you very bland food because they're known for that. But if you do it at an exotic location, trust me, the food will be very good, because that's actually one of the insights that I got, because they fed us very well. Although it was very simple, it was very tasty. And I think everybody had that experience where the food was fresh and it was vegetarian, and it was just so much part of the whole experience. And we really appreciated that. At the end, everybody spoke on that. So that's my advice for people: do the Vipassana if you get a chance.
That sounds amazing, and it certainly sounds like a great adventure. I don't think I could stay quiet for 11 days. So, but of course, based on what you have said right now, I might give it a shot at some point in my life. So now that's definitely on my list, but when it will manifest, I have no idea. But
Mhm.
that certainly sounds like fun because, we get to spend so little time with ourselves because of the commitments that we have beyond ourselves, be it professionally or personally. And that then allows, all these 11 days of just staying quiet and being in touch with yourself. I think that's really important because along the way, somewhere people start living a life to fulfill, their responsibilities and to please others, that they lose the track of what they want to do and what they would like to see in their life. And so, having that perspective coming out of an experience like this, I think that's pretty cool. And so, yeah, I think if it is something that people think that they could do, then I definitely suggest they should go ahead and do it. Um, and yes, words do mean a lot and they are important because what you say is not only reflective of how you think and how you perceive the world, but also it has the ability to move people. And we all know that because, as storytellers, it is our job to move people emotionally to stay invested in the story. And I think the more you hone that idea and the more you understand that your words can make a difference, the more responsible and the more creative you will be with that. So, yeah, I think that's wonderful that you gave it a shot and it worked out so well for you. And I hope that people listening to this, if they think that they could go for it, then I think they should. So, thank you so much for sharing that. What kind of impact would you like to see your work have on people?
So I imagine, and I aspire that I would like to affect the world at large with all my projects, whether it's my books or whether it's my talks or it's a show that I'm about to produce or a speech I give or an interview or even projects that I would pick and choose if they have a special meaning to them or a message to the world. I think that would be a project that's worthwhile doing. I see specifically, I feel like the gifts that I have on how to affect people is firstly, I think this deep pursuit of spiritual knowledge and development, because it's been very important to me in my life. And not everybody gets that sort of footing, I think, growing up or even through their life. And it's some people, if they're lucky in their later years, they sort of get that message, and then they do go to ashrams or try to find a guru, or they kind of really kind of they're trying to find themselves in a way. And for me, I like people to maybe reflect on that while they're young, because I was very lucky enough to do that, and I know that it transforms you as a person. Another thing, my work is always going to be global because I really am a citizen of the world, and I can feel at home anywhere. And I want to sort of showcase the oneness out there and the differences as well as the similarities among cultures and nations and traditions. But ultimately, how are we alike? How are we all one? Because we are in the end. I also want people to, of course, go within because I think the real truth is always inside of you. Your inner self is, your greatest source of truth, and you must always be tapped in. And I would like people to, uh, really sort of make it more about themselves. Your why and your intention in life should be greater than yourself, and that's when things actually manifest. I feel that that's the power to manifestation is make sure your intention is greater than yourself, because then there's more at stake. And because what you want to manifest, if it does come true, it's actually going to affect more people than just yourself. And this is something that we're not often taught when we're taught about visualization or how do you get what you want. It needs to be deeper than that. So I feel like I do have a power. I can affect the world at large, and I must just step up and be that person. And I do already see the effect. Many compliments that I've received, or people share with me how something I said, or they read that I had written really touched them, and that just makes my day. It makes everything so worthwhile because this is so challenging. I think to go out on your own and go out on a limb and sort of kind of be a teacher or a messenger of these universal truths. And it just makes everything worthwhile. So I just hope that I can continue to do that, and I can even continue to make the stakes even higher, and touch even more people, and even with a more stronger message in the future.
Like, with all the things that you're producing and the articles that you're writing and the talks that you're giving, I love what you said about the culture, because culture is always the centerpiece of what I do with my films or any kind of storytelling for that matter. My first short film was a Japanese film, and I realized when I was researching that story that on a human level we are all the same. As you said, like, we could be living in a different economy, different political situation, different norms and cultures, but eventually we all do the things that humans do, and we are all creatures of love. The emotion of love has the power to unite everyone, and that's what I try to explore in my films. Is that how can the universal human emotions of like love, hatred, jealousy, empathy, all of those things could come together, and how would a character react in a situation like that. And so that's always something that I look forward to, is that what nuance of a culture can I explore by telling this story. So uh, I've made films in India, of course, in US, in Europe, and all of these projects have allowed me to take one thing away from that culture that has stayed with me. And so that then allows me to capitalize on that knowledge, that okay, when I was in Japan I saw this, and that was, something that is very similar, very different to what we do in India or in the US. And so it just allows me to better understand the people and the mindset. So yeah, if you are in a position where you can share this with people, and you get a feedback for that where they say good things about it, then it really feels nice, because I've got a lot of compliments for this podcast or for the articles that I write, and it just feels that that keeps me going. And on days when I feel like I don't want to invest in this, or I don't want to give some time and effort to it, uh, the recollection of these things really helped me to keep going. So yeah, I think you're doing wonderful as you are, and to have that thought that you want to have even a bigger impact is really amazing. What's next? What are the exciting ideas or projects that you're working on, and what can the listeners expect from you going ahead?
So I'm so excited because I'm working on a number of exciting projects. Firstly, I'm my book that I'm writing that should be hopefully done and published soon, maybe at the end of the year or early next year or so on. And it's a book that's called The Eternal Gift, and it's about some of the universal gifts that we can give to ourselves. So I'm excited about that. I am producing currently. I'm in the development phase of developing a brand new TV show that's going to be a travel show because, of course, I am so passionate about traveling, and I thought I'd uh, produce something and also host it where I am, giving a unique bent to the travel world and a travel show that's a bit unique, a bit off the beaten path. I will be speaking around the world. I'm speaking in Vietnam at the end of the year. I'm going to be speaking in India, in Delhi, and I'm also going to be speaking in India next year in Calcutta for an international conference. So I'll be speaking at the Global Think Tank. That's the one in Vietnam. And so many more speaking opportunities coming from me. And I'm going to focus, of course, on my own podcast. And I seem to be doing lots of other interviews with various other on various other podcasts as well. And I'm, as a global brand ambassador for different sort of products and so on, I actually have an idea for my own line of some kind of wellness, beauty, or health and wellness product. So keep a watch out for that because that's being developed as well. And I'm just very excited and blessed to be doing all the things that I love. I do feel like I'm gonna, step up and be bolder and do even greater things that hopefully affect the world even more than what I'm already doing. But people can keep in touch with me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. It's essentially Preity Upala, Preity, and the last name is Upala. Please, you connect with me directly. I'm very good at engaging with people. I love to hear from my fans or anyone who supports me or is interested. Just reach out, and all my videos and interviews are up there online and on YouTube. My articles are just Google my name and journalist or whatever, and all my articles will come up. But also my website is going to be live soon, and I'll put all of my articles on there too. And I think my blog is out there as well. So please keep in touch. I'm so excited when I get to hear from people all around the world being affected with what I say and what I do and who I am. So that's it moves me so much.
And this is what I consider winning at life because you are just doing amazing thing in each aspect of storytelling or something that you can use to make a difference to people's lives. And I think be it the travel show or your articles or your interviews or your talks, I think this is something very amazing, and I certainly look up to it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. It was such a pleasure to connect with you and hope to do it again soon.
To those of you already supporting the show with a monthly subscription, thank you. If you're not already a supporter and you would like to help make this show possible, tap the link in this episode's description or visit anchor.com/theafflatus to become a monthly supporter. You've been listening to The Afflatus. If you like what you have heard, do us a favor and share the episode with your network on social media. It helps. If you would like to know more about the show or share your opinion on the episodes, connect with us on facebook.com/unciafilms. That's facebook.com/UNCIAFILMS. Thank you so much for listening to The Afflatus.